The wind screamed across the endless white, a living thing that wanted to rip the breath from my lungs and leave me hollow. I'd come to this research station in Antarctica thinking science would be enough to fill the silence. But after months of unrelenting cold, the isolation had carved something deeper into me, a hunger not just for warmth, but for connection, any kind. The layers of thermal gear did nothing against the ache that settled in my bones, colder than the ice itself. I lay curled in my narrow bunk, staring at the photo taped above me, my family back in Cork, smiling in sunlight I could barely remember. Their faces held a promise of laughter and soft hugs, a world so far from this frozen hell that it felt like a dream I'd invented to survive. I pulled the blanket tighter, but the cold always found a way in. Arohi had laughed when she saw me packing Heart of Darkness. "It'll help you understand the darkness here," she'd said with that unshakable optimism of hers. She was wrong. Conrad's words only made the shadows thicker, the loneliness sharper. Some nights I read until my eyes burned, searching for meaning in the madness, but all I found was the echo of my own isolation. Then came the sound, not the wind, not the groan of shifting ice. Something closer, deliberate. Heavy paws on metal flooring, the soft click of claws. Bruno, the St. Bernard we brought for morale, for emergencies, for anything that might remind us we weren't completely alone. He moved through the narrow corridor between modules like he owned the place. Unafraid of the dark or the cold, I sat up, heart suddenly loud into quiet. The need for company, for anything alive, pulled me out of the bunk before I could think better of it. I opened the door to his small enclosure, and there he was, tail sweeping the floor in slow, welcoming arcs. His brown eyes caught the dim emergency light, deep and knowing, carrying an understanding no human had offered me in months. "Hey, big guy," I whispered, dropping to my knees beside him. My fingers sank into thick fur, warm and solid, and something inside me cracked open. He leaned into my touch, massive head resting against my chest, breath hot through my layers. For the first time in forever, the cold retreated. We stayed like that for a long time, me stroking his coat, him breathing steady and deep. His warmth seeped into me, thawing places I'd forgotten could feel anything. The station around us faded. The howling wind became background music. There was only Bruno, his weight, his heat, the quiet rhythm of his heart against mine. I buried my face in the ruff of his neck, inhaling the clean animal scent of him, salt and snow and something primal. My hands moved gently, tracing the powerful lines of his shoulders, the curve of his ribs. He let out a low, contented rumble that vibrated through both of us. I felt it in my chest, in my throat, a reminder that life still existed here. A tremor ran through me, not from cold this time. Something else, gratitude, relief. The thought should have been simple. Instead, it lit a quiet light inside. Bruno shifted, nose nudging under my chin, warm breath washing over my throat. I closed my eyes, letting the comfort roll over me like a tide. A soft sigh escaped. I should have gone back to my bunk. I didn't doubt my fingers tightened in his fur. "Bruno." My voice cracked, half whisper, half thanks. He answered with another low rumble, deeper now, more reassuring. His body pressed closer, heavy and sure. I felt the strength in him, the raw, unapologetic loyalty of him. And in that moment, wrapped in the dark of the station, with the world locked outside, I realized I was trembling not from fear but from the simple gift of not being alone. The line between loneliness and companionship had already begun to heal, and I wasn't sure I ever wanted it to break again. The comfort deepened as Bruno's weight settled against me, his massive frame a steady wall of warmth in the dim module. I felt the rough texture of his fur under my palms, each gentle stroke pulling me deeper into this quiet bond. The station's hum faded, replaced by the sound of our breaths mingling, mine slow and steady now, his calm like the pulse of the ice outside. I knew this was a rare kind of friendship, one drawn by society's rules, by reason, but in this frozen exile, those rules felt distant. My fingers traced the curve of his neck, feeling the quiet strength there, and a warmth spread through me, slow and gentle, awakening places I'd buried under layers of survival. Bruno's eyes held mine, dark and unblinking, as if he sensed the storm inside me quieting. His nose brushed my collarbone, cold at first, then warm as his breath followed. A soft sigh escaped my throat, not fear but something softer, a release I denied myself for too long. The cold seeped into my bones. a constant enemy in this battle against the environment. But here, with him, it transformed into contrast his heat against my chill. His presence a balm for my soul, a connection to life amidst this desolation. I leaned in, my cheek against his flank, feeling the rise and fall of his chest sync with mine. It was intimate in the purest way, this sharing of space. This wordless understanding that bridged the gap between us. Time stretched, the midnight sun casting faint glows through the small window, turning the module into a cocoon of shadows and light. I whispered his name again, Bruno, and he responded with a nudge, resting his head in my lap. The moment lingered, peaceful and grounding, stirring emotions I'd forgotten in the grind of research logs and weather reports. Loneliness had been my companion for months, but now it softened into gratitude, a deep calm that Bruno seemed to hold steady. His paws rested heavy near me, anchoring me in place with gentle presence, and I didn't pull away. Instead, I let the quiet settle completely, letting him remind me there were still places where rules didn't matter. The wind howled outside, but inside a different peace grew. My hands rested on his coat, feeling the steady contours, the strength in his shoulders, the softness beneath. Each gentle pat was a reminder, building a bridge of trust and comfort. Bruno rumbled low, the vibration resonating through me, steadying every breath. I closed my eyes, letting the feeling settle, wave after wave, until the boundary between isolation and companionship felt whole again. It was emotional, this bond rooted in the shared silence, the mutual need for warmth in a world that offered none, but doubts flickered at the edges. What if Arohi stirred in her bunk nearby? Her presence, just meters away, added a quiet awareness of the world beyond this moment. Would she notice the change in me tomorrow? The subtle shift in how I carried myself, how I looked at Bruno? The thought added weight, but also care. I pushed it aside, focusing on the now, the way his breath steadied my own. The way my heart slowed in tandem with his thought. As the night deepened, Bruno's presence grew more grounding. He curled closer, his body a protective shield that felt both solid and kind. I felt the initial tension melt into something profound, a wave of connection that left me calmer. Our rhythms aligned, a quiet harmony of instincts and emotions where every small shift brought us nearer to simple peace. The outside world disappeared, replaced by a haze of gratitude and calm. And in that haze, I wondered, how long could this quiet strength carry me before dawn forced the routine back? My thoughts quieted, leaving only sensations, the warmth, the steady pressure, the soft rumbles that echoed my own breathing. It was beautiful in its simplicity, a reminder that in this desolation, life found ways to hold on. Bruno's eyes never left mine for long, holding a promise that this was more than fleeting comfort. And as we lingered in that gentle space, I realized the true gift wasn't the moment itself, but how it might change everything that followed. The module door creaked faintly in the wind, a reminder of the fragile barrier between us and the team. But what if someone understood? The creak echoed in my mind like a soft warning, but the calm between Bruno and me drowned it out. In the hush of the module, his presence overwhelmed everything else. The faint glow from the window, the distant hum of generators, the ever-present bite of cold air slipping through seals. I shifted beside him, my body relaxing into the closeness with a rush of quiet relief that started deep and spread, turning isolation into belonging. It wasn't just warmth. It was emotional, a tether in the void, where every glance from his deep eyes felt like understanding I craved without knowing. My fingers wove deeper into his fur, feeling the life pulsing beneath, and a soft sigh escaped me, carrying the weight of months alone. Bruno's rumble came again, low and resonant, vibrating through my core like a shared secret. He nuzzled closer, his breath warm against my ear, offering paths of comfort that eased the tension across my shoulders. I whispered his name, my voice trembling with the mix of vulnerability and gratitude that had built so quietly. The station felt smaller now, our world reduced to the space, this moment where the rules of the outside felt far away. Arohi slept just beyond the thin wall, her optimism a distant light in this haze, but the awareness only deepened the appreciation, making each quiet second feel more alive, more necessary. As we rested together in that peaceful rhythm, sensations layered upon one another, the softness of his coat against my palms, the steady pressure of his form, the way his warmth chased away the chill that had become my constant companion. It was a harmony of sorts, instinctive and profound, where emotions intertwined with the simple act of being together, creating a bond that felt timeless. I closed my eyes, letting go of the doubts that flickered like shadows, surrendering to the calm that built inside. His presence was gentle yet solid, guiding me toward a place of rest where loneliness dissolved into something beautiful, raw, and deeply human. The night unfolded slowly, each minute stretching into eternity. Bruno's eyes held mine in the dim light, reflecting a loyalty that stirred my heart. I felt protected, cherished in a way no words could capture, his presence a balm for the soul amid this desolation. My hands rested with quiet tenderness, tracing the lines of his strength, and he responded in kind, settling deeper with a soft huff. It was emotional, this exchange comforting in its purity, grounding in its simplicity, a reminder that connection could bloom in the unlikelist places. But as the quiet deepened, thoughts of the teen crept in. Karen and Rohan would be up soon, their morning routines a stark return to normalcy. What if they sensed the shift, the subtle change in how Bruno stayed near me? The curiosity lingered. Would this quiet bond hold, or would it simply become part of the daily rhythm? I pushed the worry aside, focusing on the synchronized breaths. The shared warmth that made the cold outside irrelevant. Deeper into the stillness, the comfort settled fully, a steady glow that left me at peace. Bruno's rumble softened to a contented sigh, his body relaxing against mine as we lingered in the gentle afterglow of companionship. It was a moment of pure harmony, where the madness of isolation felt like the sanest thing in this chaotic environment. I stroked his fur, whispering thanks for the comfort, the spark that reignited something vital inside me. The wind battered the station walls, but inside, peace settled, fragile and precious yet. As dawn's faint light began to filter through, Bruno stirred, his ears perking at some distant sound. My heart tightened. What if this wasn't the end, but the beginning of something steady we could carry forward? The module felt charged with unspoken possibilities. And then, a soft knock echoed from the corridor. The soft knock hung in the air like a held breath. My pulse quickened as Bruno's ears flicked forward, his body tensing beneath my hands. For a heartbeat, the module felt too small, the walls too thin, every sound amplified by the fear of interruption. I froze, fingers still buried in his thick fur, the warmth between us suddenly fragile. The knock didn't come again. Silence returned, heavy and watchful. It might have been the wind shifting a loose panel, or one of the team stirring in their sleep, Karen, perhaps restless after too many hours staring at seismic charts. Or maybe Rohan, always the first to rise, checking instruments before coffee. Whoever it was, they didn't linger. The corridor stayed quiet. Bruno relaxed first, leaning into me again, his nose nudging my shoulder in gentle reassurance. The moment of alarm melted back into closeness, but it left a trace behind, a sharper appreciation for the bond we'd carved out. I exhaled slowly, letting my forehead rest against his. "We have to be careful," I murmured, though the words felt almost unnecessary. Careful wasn't the word for what we'd found. Still, the quiet only deepened the gift. Every shared glance, every calm touch carried the comfort of something hidden, something ours alone in this vast and different white. I stroked along his flank, slower now, savoring the way his breathing deepened in response. The station around us felt distant again, the cold held at bay by the warmth we shared. My shoulders eased where his presence had steadied me earlier. A lingering memory that set fresh calm curling through me. We settled into a quieter rhythm, less urgent but no less profound. Bruno curled around me, his massive form a living blanket, protective and steady in the gentlest way. I traced idle patterns through his coat, feeling the steady thump of his heart against my side. In that stillness, emotions rose, unbidden gratitude, wonder, a quiet ache that wasn't loneliness anymore. He had become my anchor, my refuge, the one living thing that asked nothing and gave everything. The thought made my throat tighten. Outside, the wind dropped for a rare moment, leaving only the soft creak of ice settling somewhere far below. I wondered how many more nights like this we could share before someone noticed the subtle changes, the way Bruno followed me closer than before, the way my gaze lingered on him during meals. Arohi had already teased me about my new best friend. She'd laughed when she said it, but her eyes had been curious. Too curious. I pushed the worry down, focusing instead on the present. Bruno's breath warmed the curve of my neck, steady and soothing. He huffed once, a soft, affectionate sound, and I smiled despite myself. There was beauty in this raw, unspoken, defying every expectation I'd ever known. In a place where survival demanded detachment, we had found something fiercely alive. As the artificial lights dimmed to simulate night, I let myself sink deeper into the calm. Sensations layered softly now, the weight of him, the rise and fall of his ribs, the faint salt and snow scent that clung to his fur. It was comforting in the strangest, most honest way, two beings reaching across boundaries, finding solace where none should exist. But peace never lasted long here. Somewhere down the corridor, a door hissed open, footsteps slow, deliberate, began moving closer. The footsteps paused just outside the module door. My breath caught, sharp and silent. Bruno's body stiffened beneath my hands, ears pricked. A low rumble building in his chest, not aggressive, but alert, protective. I pressed myself closer to him instinctively, as though his bulk could shield us from whatever waited on the other side. The thin metal door offered no real barrier. Sound carried too easily here, and quiet moments even more so. Seconds stretched. Then the steps moved on, slow, unhurried, fading down the corridor toward the galley. Probably Rohan heading for the first coffee of the morning, or Karen checking the overnight data logs. Whoever it was didn't knock, didn't linger. The station settled back into its familiar drone, wind, generators, the distant groan of ice. I exhaled, shaky with relief and leftover calm. Bruno nudged my chin with his nose, warm and steady, as if to say it's safe now. I buried my face against his neck, letting the familiar scent, salt, snow, and something deeply alive ground me. The near miss only sharpened everything. The warmth of his fur, the steady rhythm of his breathing, the quiet certainty that this bond was real. We stayed close together as the artificial lights began their slow brightening, simulating a dawn that would never truly arrive. I traced slow circles along his flank, memorizing the feel of him, the way his muscles shifted under my touch. There was no rush now, only a gentle afterglow that wrapped around us both. Emotions rose softly, gratitude first, then wonder, then a bittersweet tenderness for this strange, impossible connection that had pulled me back from the edge of despair. Bruno had become more than a companion. He was proof that even in the harshest place on Earth, life found ways to reach out, to claim warmth where none should exist. I thought of Aruhi's teasing smile, of Karen's easy laughter, of Rohan's quiet focus. Good people, all of them, yet none of them could fill the space Bruno had claimed. And though I knew this couldn't last forever, that one day the season would end and we'd return to cities where such quiet bonds were simply part of life, right now it felt like the truest thing I'd ever known. I pressed a soft pat to the top of his head. Between the ears, a gesture small and private. He answered with a contented huff, tail sweeping once across the floor. In that quiet exchange, everything was said. When the station lights reached full brightness, I finally stirred. Bruno rose with me, stretching with the lazy dignity of a king satisfied. He shook himself, sending tiny crystals of frost scattering across the floor, a reminder of the world outside, of the cold waiting to reclaim me. But as I stood, smoothing my clothes, I felt different. Stronger, less alone. Bruno sat at my feet, head tilted, watching me with those deep, knowing eyes. I crouched once more, cupping his face in both hands. "Thank you," I whispered. "For everything." He leaned into my touch, tail thumping softly. Later, at breakfast, the team gathered as always. Aruhi slid a mug of tea my way with her usual bright smile. "You look rested," she said, tilting her head. "Good dreams?" I smiled back, careful, calm. "The best kind." Bruno lay beneath the table, head resting on my boot, tail giving too slow. Deliberate thumps against the floor, code only we understood. Outside, the wind howled on, eternal and indifferent, but inside me, something had changed forever, a warmth no cold could ever take away. And sometimes, when the station sleeps and the sun never sets, Bruno still finds his way to my side. Thank you for joining me on this quiet, intense journey through isolation and unexpected companionship. If this story stirred something in you, whether longing, wonder, or simply the comfort of shared warmth, please leave a like. Share it with someone who might understand. And subscribe for more tales that explore the edges of human emotion. Until next time, stay warm.